Good morning, it's Thursday, Yud Gimel Nisan Tov Ayin Ches. We are in Teres Menachem Sefer Mamar Vayedaber Yud Gimel, in the Mamar of the second day of Shavuos. And we are on page Kuf Samach Zayin, and on the second paragraph on the page, beginning with the words V'yuvon. To recap what the Rebbe said up until this point in the Mamar, the Rebbe began by asking why in the verse that describes the giving of the Torah, it says that God spoke to Moses, Leimoyer, so to say, which usually denotes meaning to transmit it onto someone else. We know that the Ten Commandments, Hashem himself spoke. And everybody agrees that at least the first two commandments, we all heard from Hashem himself. And not only those people that were the Yidden, the Bnei Yisrael that were present, that were alive at that time, but all the souls of all the Yidden for all generations to come were there. So since when it says Leimer, so to say, it says that, states that even before the first of the two of the Ten Commandments, therefore it cannot mean that Hashem intended it to mean that Moshe should transmit it onto someone else. Right? So what's the meaning of the word Leimer? And then also why Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am the Lord your God. What's this long expression that could have easily said, I am the one who took you out of Egypt? Also, why does it say I took you out of Egypt from the house of slavery? Certainly the point over here is that God is telling the Jewish people that I've taken you out from slavery, from serving Pharaoh to serve me. So therefore, what difference does it make where the house of slavery was? Why does Hashem have to point out that it was in Egypt? He could have said, I took you out from the house of slavery, etc., etc. So then I began to explain that the Torah is a blueprint and the plans by which Hashem created the world. Hashem looked into the Torah and created the world. So therefore, it's understood that everything that is in the world we could find in the Torah. And so too, being that man is a microcosm of the world, you also find all those things in man. And I want to explain that the world is generally divided into four types. Doimim, Tzemech, Chayin, Medaber. The inanimate, the vegetable, the living, and the speaking. The difference being that each one has a, quote, soul that is higher than the other. The inanimate, the silent, the doimim, has a soul that brings it into being, a life energy that brings it into being and then sustains it, but that's about it. The Tzemeach, the vegetable, has in addition to that, the life force also causes it to grow from small to big. The Chai, the animal, already has a consciousness and also an element of intellect. As we know, animals do have intellect, and the Chazal also, our sages speak about the fox in the context of being the cleverest of the animals. Then, of course, you have the Medaber, the speaking, which is a reference to the human, whose main quality is that which is beyond intellect, which the Rebbe will explain. And this quality of the human being that is beyond intellect expresses itself in the doimim, in the silent, in the inanimate aspect within man, as we will see. That's where we're up to. Page Kuf Samach Zayin V'yuvon. V'yuvon ze medal da sugim dem tzemech chai medaber k'mesha hem ba'adam gufa. This will be understood by looking at the four elements of dem tzemech chai medaber, the inanimate, the vegetable, the animal, and the speaking, right? As they are in man himself. In other words, in the human being, you can also find these four categories. The daimim, the silent, inanimate type within man, is letters. Not only don't letters have any life energy, even more so, they also have no growth from small to big. They continue to exist as they are. Similar to daimim the silent, the inanimate in the world. For one letter cannot turn into two. It's one letter and that's it. So too in the types of letters that there are, because as we know there are in the Torah, it's a reference to the letters in the Torah, there are small letters, medium-sized letters, and large letters, right? It says the Rebbe, where we find there are large letters, medium-sized letters, and small letters. From small letters, never will they be transformed into medium-sized letters or large letters. Let's go through the section Pirush HaMilos, just to define the words, and then we can come back and analyze it.
But we seem to start talking about letters of thought or speech inside the man, and now you're talking about the written letters, but it's not...
Letters. As the Rebbe will explain later on, Nefesh Meleya Asius. There are letters in the human being as well. Man, as you rightly say, thinks. Man speaks. Those letters are not from outside of the person; they exist within the person. So that's the.
Well, we say that a lot of that is taught. You have the capacity, but a lot is taught.
Let me look into Pirush HaMilos, and then we can come back to it. So that's Asius. L'maylam is higher than this. The sugat tzemech sheba adam is the vegetable type within man. Shu inyan amidus, which is a reference to the emotions. Sheyesh b'em tzmicha mekatas l'gadas. Emotions grow from small emotions to big emotions. L'maylam is even beyond that. Suga chai sheba adam is the animal with type within man. Shu inyan aseichel, which is a reference to intellect. Meshakosov, as is stated in Ecclesiastes, B'hachochma he talks about over there the virtue of riches and the virtue of knowledge, and he says that chochma, wisdom, has a virtue over and above monetary possessions, money, because B'hachochma techaya ba'aleh, wisdom gives life to its possessor. But we see that the verse refers to chochma as techaya. So that is used as a support for the fact that Chochmah, intellect, is the chai, the animal type within man. And the Rebbe explains, V'hainu, she'inyan amidus av she'em hergish, for the idea of emotions, even though what we're talking about is feeling, right? So if you're talking about feeling, I guess that's you're already referring to an aspect of life, right? So why do we say that Chai is a reference to seichel, to the intellect, rather than to the midas, to the emotions? Nevertheless, ein ze'in shel chai, the feeling that we're talking about here in reference to the emotions is not the same idea as chayas, energy, life. That is because the idea of emotions does not penetrate the person completely. Doesn't completely penetrate the person. Es nimmt ihm nicht durch im Ganzen, as the Rebbe defines it in Yiddish. The rak inyan seichel, it's only the idea of seichel, intellect, being that chochma, wisdom, is the first of the internal faculties of the person, of the human. It penetrates the person completely. Therefore, it is specifically when we talk about the intellect that it possesses the idea of life, meaning to say Frischkeit und Lebendigkeit, freshness and aliveness. Again, we'll go back to that in a minute. Beyond this is the speaking aspect type within the human, which is the essence of the soul, which is beyond intellect. Right? And this essence of the soul, which is beyond intellect, as the Rebbe concluded the previous section, that the highest aspect of the person expresses itself in the doimim, in the inanimate aspect of the person. So this idea of the person being the highest level of the person, which is the essence of the soul beyond intellect, misgala reveals itself in letters of speech, suga doimim sheba adam, the inanimate aspect type within man. V'hainu, meaning to say, she'inyan ha'seichel, that the idea of the intellect of man, which is the chai, right, the animal aspect of the man, misgala b'midas, expresses itself in the emotions, but umaylas ha'medaber, the virtue of the medaber, the speaking, meaning to say the highest aspect of the human being, shalamaylam ha'seichel, which is beyond intellect, misgala b'eisius dafke, reveals itself specifically in letters, shaharei eisius hadibur bayim etzem ha'nefesh, because the letters of speech stem and come from the essence of the soul. Okay, this is the Pirush HaMilas. I want to read you a section, first of all, in Tanya. This is from Geras HaKodesh, the fourth section of the Tanya, and it's chapter 5, or as they refer to it here as, how do you pronounce it? Epistle?
Epistle, yeah.
Epistle 5. What does the epistle mean?
It's a letter in Latin.
Letter?
The letter that you write, yes.
Uh-huh. Okay, so the Alter Rebbe over here explains that the Zohar states or rather, the Alter Rebbe explains the Maimer Azal, that which the sages say in Talmud. It says in the verse, Ki b'ko Hashem tzur elamim, b'yudkei Hashem tzur elamim. With Yudkei Hashem is the rock of the worlds. So the sages state Behei nivra elam hazeh, b'yud nivra elam haba, that this world was created with the Hey of Hashem's name, and the world to come was created by the letter Yud. Right? So Alter Rebbe explains that this is a reference to the pleasure that tzaddikim have in Gan Eden, etc., etc. Right? This means that the delight with which the souls of the righteous experience, this means that the delight which the souls of the righteous experience, as they enjoy the splendor of the Shekhinah, which radiates in the upper and lower gardens of Eden, consists of their pleasure in their appreciation and conception of godliness, in other words. For they conceive with the faculty of Chokhmah, and they know with the faculty of Da'at, and understand with the faculty of Bina, some degree of apprehension of the light and vitality which effuses there in Gan Eden, in a revealed manner from the blessed Ein Sof out to their souls and their spirit of understanding. Right? So that's why he says the world to come is referred to as Bina, understanding, in the Zohar. And this flow issues forth from the plane of supernal Chokhmah, Chokhmah Ilah, which is the source of the conception and apprehension known as Bina. For Chokhmah is the primordial stage of the intellect before apprehension and understanding become manifest. Rather, Chokhmah at this stage is still in a state of obscurity and concealment. Of course, he's over here talking about the level of Chokhmah that transcends the intellect and comprehension, the source of it all. It differs from the more external level of Chokhmah, which is the germ of intellect and is already illuminated by it, etc. So we're talking about Chokhmah Ilah, Kadmas HaSeichel, a very high level. This level of Chokhmah is the Yud, and it's referred to as Eden, of which it is said, no eye has beheld it. Ayin le'ro'asa. Now he goes on. This means the formation of the letters of speech, which proceed from the 5 organs of articulation, the larynx, palate, tongue, teeth, and lips, is not an intellectual process. The letters do not emanate from the soul as a result of any intellectual imperative. It is also not inherent in the nature of these organs that they must pronounce these letters. For example, with the lips, by means of which the letters Beis, Vov, Mem, and Pei are uttered. Since the lips are the most visible of the organs of speech, the Alter Rebbe chooses the lips, even though there are other 4 organs that produce letters. But he brings an example from the lips. Neither nature nor the intellect compels the utterance of the four varying types of pronunciation of these letters in accordance with variations in the movement of the lips. That doesn't come from the intellect. Right? What causes man to utter letters in a certain way, which are moved by the same breath and the same sound that strike them equally? Right? Following? What he's saying?
Yes, I am following, and I'm thinking a lot about
On the contrary, the change in the movements of the lips depends on the difference in pronunciation of the letters the soul wishes to utter by means of the lips. It is not the other way around, that it is the will and intention of the soul to make a change in the motions of the lips. Depending on what letter the person wants to articulate, express, the soul will go along with it. The will, yeah, that's... So now I want to...
But yes, the will projects it through the machine, which is the mouth, and the voice box, and things like that.
It's not nature nor the intellect that compels the utterance of the five varying letters. On the contrary, the change in the movement of the lips depends on the difference in pronunciation of the letters the soul wishes to utter by means of the lips. When it desires to pronounce the letter Beis or Vav or Mem or Pei, and the lips will instinctively and spontaneously move accordingly. Not the other way around, that it is the will and intention of the soul to make a change in the motions of the lips. As is empirically evident, the soul does not at all intend to know how to intend the change in the motions of the lips, which articulate those distinctions between the various letters. This is even more evident in the pronunciation of vowels. When the soul wishes to utter a kametz vowel, the lips spontaneously become compressed. With a pasach vowel, they become compressed in a different way. Not because of the will of the soul to compress or to open the mouth to express the vowel. There is no need to go any further in a matter which is simple, comprehensible, and intelligible to every intelligent person. Namely, that the pronunciation of the letters and vowels transcends the apprehended and comprehended intellect. So where does it emanate from? But rather derives from the hidden intellect and the primordial stage of the intellect, which is in the articulate soul. This is why an infant cannot speak, even though it understands everything. For speech does not result from the revealed and apprehended intellect, but from the more rarefied hidden intellect, which in the infant has yet to be developed. We thus see that the letters of speech derive from Chokhmah. This then is the meaning of the father who founded the daughter. Chokhmah is the father or the source of the letters of speech, which are called the daughter or the Sephira of Malchus. The point being, what is the Alter Rebbe referring to? He's talking about Chokhmah Ilah, Kadmus HaSeichel, right? Not the Chokhmah that, the revealed Chokhmah, but the Eden, the Chokhmah that's referred to as Eden, which no eye has seen, right? So we're talking about the highest level of Chokhmah. In a certain sense, I guess it is still related to Keser. Chokhmah Ilah sometimes is referred to as, or Eden is referred to as Keser. So it's still the aspect of Chokhmah as it relates to Keser, right? But the point being, that's where letters come from. We're not talking about the intellect that is clothed in the letters, but the actual expression of the letters comes from this level of Kadmus HaSeichel. So that's why the Medaber element of the human being, the highest aspect of the human being, expresses itself in the Doimim, in the inanimate and the silent aspect of the human being. We'll go through it, please God, slowly, because it's an interesting point, even and another point when he talks about Chai being the Seichel, Tzemech being the Midas, and Chai being the Seichel. So we'll flesh all that out because there are a few Mamorim that we should be looking at in order to try to dissect what the Rebbe is saying here. We'll see you, please God. What time is Shabbos tomorrow morning? Same time?
8 or 8:15.
You want to learn tomorrow morning? Huh?
I don't know. Depends what happens tonight.
Okay, so we'll be in touch.
You can,
Otherwise,
you can text me and see what's happening.
Okay.